Naya held the brown envelope in her hands like it might catch fire. Her fingers trembled as she stared at her name printed on the front. Her whole world had narrowed down to this moment. The silence in their living room was suffocating. Outside, the neighbor's rooster crowed, clueless of the storm inside her chest. She slid a finger under the flap and peeled it open, heart hammering. Her eyes skimmed the first line. Then the next. The letters blurred. Failed. 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 She blinked hard, but the words didn't change. The room spun slowly, as if even the ceiling fan had paused to witness her disgrace. She dropped the paper on the table and backed away, breath caught in her throat. A strange, hollow noise rang in her ears. She had failed every single subject. All the long nights, the fasting, the quiet prayers whispered into her pillow, they had led to this? Her chest ached like something had snapped inside. The door creaked open. Her father's heavy footsteps echoed on the tile floor. He was home. Boma stepped into the house, wiping sweat from his brow with the sleeve of his oil-stained shirt. His boots dragged dust in behind him, and the familiar scent of engine oil followed like a shadow. Naya stood frozen by the table, the result slip lying there like a crime scene. He didn't see it at first. He reached for the jug of water and drank deeply, sighing with relief. Today's heat is something else, he muttered. Then his eyes landed on her face, pale, wide-eyed, lips slightly parted. What's wrong with you? Snake bite your tongue. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Instead, she pointed at the paper. Slowly, he walked over, picked it up, and began to read. The silence thickened. Naya watched his expression shift, brows furrowing, nostrils flaring, jaw tightening. He read it again, slower this time, as if disbelief had made him miss something the first round. When he finally looked up at her, the fury in his eyes made her take a step back. This is what you've been doing all year, he said, voice low and dangerous. This nonsense. Naya's lips quivered. Papa, I tried. I really did. I studied. Studied what? Cartoons. Gossip, he barked. He slammed the paper down. You failed everything, Naya. After all the sacrifices I made. After selling my generator to pay for your lessons. Naya's throat tightened. I didn't mean to fail. I was struggling, but I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to disappoint you. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Boma scoffed. So you thought hiding would make it better? You thought if you failed in silence, the shame would be quieter. He shook his head, pacing. Do you know what people will say? Boma's daughter is a blockhead. That's what they'll say. I'll rewrite. I promise. I'll do better, she said quickly, tears brimming. Too late, he snapped. You've embarrassed me. You've embarrassed this family. You're no longer my child. From today, find where you belong. The words hit her like a slap. Her breath caught. Papa, no, please, she whispered. She moved toward him, arms half outstretched like a child begging for mercy. But he stepped back, hands raised as if her touch would burn. Don't beg me, Naya. I'm done. You're old enough to disgrace me, then you're old enough to live with it. From the corner, Naya saw her mother, Lami, standing still, one hand over her mouth. Mama, say something, she pleaded. Lami's lips trembled. Her eyes were full of tears, but she didn't move. Your father has spoken, she whispered. There's nothing I can say. It was that sentence that broke Naya completely. Not the failure, not even the disownment, but the helplessness in her mother's voice, like she was watching her child drown from behind glass. Naya turned away, tears slipping freely now. She climbed the stairs slowly to her room. Every creak of the wood felt like a farewell. In her room, she found a small nylon bag and began to pack. 2 shirts, a wrapper, her Bible, her charger, and a phone with no airtime. She stared at the faded family photo on the wall. It showed them all smiling at her graduation from junior secondary school. She took it down and slipped it into the bag. The sun was setting when she stepped out. The compound was quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of a neighbor's generator and the occasional cry of a baby from next door. Boma didn't come out to stop her. Lami stood by the door, arms folded tightly over her chest, biting her lips so hard it looked white. Naya met her eyes one last time. "I love you, Mama," she said softly. Her mother didn't respond. But her tears did. Naya turned, walked to the gate, and pushed it open. The metal screeched in protest, as if the house itself didn't want her to leave. Then it slammed shut behind her. Just like that, she was on her own. The streets were louder than she remembered. Cars honked without patience. Hawkers shouted about gala and cold drinks. Naya clutched her bag tighter, unsure where to go. She had no money for a hotel, and no friends she could call. But there was one woman, Auntie Remy, who lived 3 streets away and sometimes gave her odd chores on weekends. With aching feet and a heart heavy as stone, she walked. It felt like a dream, or a punishment she hadn't earned. She knocked on Auntie Remy's gate, hoping, praying. The woman opened the door, surprised.
"Naya?
"What are you doing here at this hour?"
I
"I don't have anywhere to go," Naya said. "Please, just for a few days." Something about the way she said it, broken but still standing, made Auntie Remy step aside without further questions. She led Naya to the back room where her son used to stay. "It's dusty," she warned. "But there's a mattress. You can manage." Naya nodded. She sat on the edge of the bed, clutching her bag like a lifeline. Auntie Remy placed a plate of rice in front of her. "Eat first," she said. "We'll talk in the morning." Naya whispered, "Thank you." It was the first kindness she'd felt all day, and it made her cry again. That night, sleep didn't come easily. The mattress was thin, and the ceiling fan squeaked with every turn. But it wasn't the discomfort that kept her awake, it was the silence. No familiar creak of her mother's footsteps. No hum of her father's evening radio. Just the sound of her own thoughts, loud and sharp. "You're no longer my child." The words echoed endlessly. She clutched the family photo to her chest and bit her lips until they bled. Her eyes burned from crying, but she refused to scream. If pain made people strong, she thought, then maybe she was on her way. She closed her eyes and prayed not for rescue, but for strength. Morning came with the sound of clanging pots and the smell of something frying. Naya sat up slowly, still clutching the photo. The room looked smaller in daylight, the paint peeling in patches. Her back ached from the hard mattress, but her mind felt even heavier. She hadn't dreamt. Everything was still real. She washed her face in the backyard with cold water from a bucket, then returned to the kitchen. Auntie Remy turned and smiled gently. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" Naya shook her head. "Thank you for letting me stay." The woman placed a steaming cup of tea in front of her. "You're not the first child to fall. What matters is whether you stand up again." Naya sipped the tea gratefully. "I failed everything," she said quietly. "My father said I disgraced him. He told me to leave." Auntie Remy's face softened. Parents sometimes say things they don't understand, especially when they think shame is louder than love. Naya looked down at her cup. "But what if he meant it? Then let your success one day answer him," she said. "Not your pain." The words sank into Naya like sunlight on frozen ground. She didn't know what her next steps were, but one thing was certain. She wasn't going back, not now. She had to find her own path, even if it meant starting from nothing. The next few days were tough. Auntie Remy allowed her to stay, but food wasn't free. Naya offered to work. She washed clothes, swept the compound, and even followed her to the market carrying baskets of tomatoes. At night, she sat under a dim bulb with an old maths textbook she found in a corner, flipping through pages she barely understood. But she tried. She read aloud, drew diagrams on brown paper, and practiced problems using a broken biro. There were no teachers, no classmates, no bells to signal lessons, but she studied like her life depended on it. Because in a way it did. Weeks turned to months. Naya began hustling on the streets during the day, washing car windshields at traffic stops, helping market women carry goods, selling bread and sachet water near busy junctions. She wore shame like a coat at first, but slowly it peeled off. People called her bread girl or maths hawker, but she didn't mind. Every naira she earned was saved. At night, she still studied. She borrowed phones to watch free lessons online. One of Auntie Remy's sons, who had a cracked tablet, allowed her to download past questions. She wrote notes in an old diary she found, making the most out of scraps. Then one evening, sitting in the dim room with a flickering bulb, she made a decision. I'll rewrite the exams next year, she told herself. And this time, I won't just pass. I'll show them I'm not what they said I am. That night, she opened her Bible and placed the result slip inside, folding it carefully. Not to hide it, but to remind herself where she started. It wasn't just about proving her father wrong anymore. It was about proving to herself that failure wasn't final, that her story could still be rewritten, and that she had the pen now. Months later, with enough savings and a quiet fire burning in her belly, Naya registered for the exams again. She paid with her own money, crumpled notes collected from her hustles and market runs. The exam center was across town, and she walked most days, carrying her bag like it held treasure. She sat in the back of the classroom, unnoticed, older than most of the students. But this time, she was ready. Every question was a battle, every answer a victory. When the papers ended, she didn't walk out crying like last time. She walked out silent, calm, steady, and different. The waiting period was torture. Each day stretched like chewing gum. She kept working, kept reading, kept praying. Sometimes, doubt crept in. What if you fail again? What if your father was right? But then she would open her diary, look at her notes, remember how far she had come. She reminded herself that no one rises without trembling first. Then, one morning, the results were released. She borrowed a phone from the barber next door and entered her registration number. Her hands shook. Her heart raced. The screen loaded slowly, then it appeared. She gasped. Passed. 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 All distinctions. She stood in the middle of the barber's shop, stunned. The room tilted slightly as tears sprang to her eyes. I passed, she whispered. The barber looked up from his client. You passed. I passed, she shouted this time, laughing through her tears. People gathered around as she jumped and spun, not caring how ridiculous she looked. Auntie Remy cried when she heard. I knew you would, my child, she said, pulling her close. You didn't just pass books. You passed life. That night, Naya held the new result slip to her chest, the one filled with victory, and whispered, This is for me. One of the market women Naya helped, Madame Ebika, told her about a foundation offering scholarships to students with financial hardship and good grades. Naya applied with trembling fingers, writing her story on the form like a wound she no longer feared to show. A month later, she was called for an interview. She wore her neatest clothes, hair pulled back, shoes dusty but polished. She spoke calmly, clearly, telling them how she studied under lantern light and paid her way with hawking. The interviewers nodded quietly. Days later, an email came in. Congratulations! You have been awarded a scholarship to study computer science at Riverline Polytechnic. Naya stood under the mango tree outside Auntie Remy's house, staring at the email with wide eyes. She read it 10 times. Then she screamed. Not out of fear, but pure, unstoppable joy. The neighborhood kids ran to her, thinking something was wrong. She grabbed them and danced. I got it! I'm going to school. Her voice echoed down the street. That evening, she sat with Auntie Remy and cried into her lap like a little girl. You gave me shelter when my father gave me shame, she whispered. Auntie Remy smiled through her own tears. And now, you will give others hope. Naya knew then, this was just the beginning. Starting school wasn't easy. Naya arrived at the Polytechnic with just a small bag, 2 second-hand dresses, and enough transport money to get her through the first week. The campus was noisy, alive, full of faces that didn't know her past. She sat in the front row of every class, asked questions, and stayed back to read when others went out to party. Most students complained about assignments. Naya thanked God for them. She typed her essays at a public cybercafe, walking miles to save fare. And every day she studied, she imagined a future her old self would have never dared to dream. She didn't tell anyone about her background at first. When people asked about her parents, she gave vague answers. It wasn't shame, it was healing. Some wounds need time before they can be spoken out loud. But one day in her 3rd semester, during a youth seminar on resilience, a guest speaker canceled, and Naya was asked to share her story. She hesitated at first. Then she stood up. I was disowned because I failed my exams, she began. The hall went quiet. But that failure was the beginning of everything I've become. When she finished, the crowd rose to their feet. Some cried. Some clapped. Everyone remembered her name after that. Word about her story traveled. A campus publication wrote about her journey. One of her lecturers helped her secure a part-time internship with a local tech firm. She learned fast: graphic design, basic programming, and customer support. Her boss called her a natural, always surprised at how quickly she grasped new things. Naya poured herself into the work. She still remembered selling bread under the sun, and it kept her humble. Each skill she learned felt like a brick in the house she was building for her future. She had no time for distractions. Her focus was survival. But slowly, it became purpose. Years passed. Naya graduated with honors. She got a full-time offer from the tech firm and rented her first apartment, tiny but hers. The night she slept there alone, she cried not from sadness, but from pride. She hung her results slip on the wall. Below it, she placed the old one, the one with all the F's. Side by side, they told a story no one could erase. She didn't call her parents. Not yet. Not out of anger, but because the chapter hadn't finished writing itself. She still needed space to fully forgive, not just in words, but in her heart. Then one afternoon, as she sipped water in the office, her phone rang. The caller ID said, Zuri. Her younger sister. Her heart thumped. She picked up. Hello. Naya. Zuri's voice was thin. Papa is sick. Very sick. He's been asking for you. Silence followed. Naya didn't speak. The pain she'd buried stirred inside her. I don't know what to say, she whispered. I understand, Zuri replied. But I think he's sorry. He keeps saying he made a mistake. He asks if you'll come. That night, Naya barely slept. The wound had faded, but the scar was still tender. Still, something in her knew it was time. She returned home the next day, taking a bus down the familiar streets. Her childhood gate looked smaller now. Weeds had grown at the edges. She knocked. Zuri opened it and hugged her tightly, crying into her shoulder. He's inside, she said. Naya stepped in. The house smelled the same: dust, old engine oil, and distant memories. Her mother sat by the corner, eyes wide with surprise. Naya, she whispered. Naya knelt and held her hand. I came, Mama. Lami wept silently, brushing her daughter's hair like she used to. You look like someone I used to know, she said softly. Naya smiled through her tears. Boma lay on a narrow mattress, pale, thinner than she remembered. His beard was white now, and his voice was barely above a whisper. When he saw her, his eyes flooded with tears. Naya, he croaked. She sat beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, I was wrong. I thought shame would make you strong, but I broke my own child instead. She swallowed hard. I became strong, she said. But not because of your shame. I became strong because I had to. His chest shuddered as he sobbed. Can you ever forgive me? She stared at him, at the man who once shut a door in her face. I carried your words for years, Naya said. They followed me through hunger, fear, and rejection. But they also taught me how to fight. I forgave you a long time ago. Not because you earned it, but because I needed peace. Boma reached for her hand, trembling. I am proud of you, he whispered. I may never deserve your love, but thank you for coming. She held his hand gently, for the first time in years. His grip was weak, but the warmth was real. In that quiet room, something broke, and something else began to mend. Love, once crushed, began to breathe again. Naya stayed for 2 days, helping her mother cook, sitting beside her father, and laughing with Zuri like they were girls again. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened. One evening, her father looked at her and said, I hope one day you'll tell the world how you rose, so no other parent makes my mistake. She nodded. One day I will. Before she left, she took one last walk through her old room. The posters were gone, but the memories lingered. She stood by the window, holding the same photo she had once taken with her. Now, the smile in the frame felt full again. Back in her apartment, Naya sat at her desk and opened her laptop. She began to type, "My father disowned me because I failed my exams," but she didn't stop there. She wrote about strength, about survival, about choosing forgiveness over bitterness. She wrote about a girl who walked into the world with nothing but a broken heart and left footprints of courage behind her. And when she finished, she smiled, not because the story was perfect, but because it was hers. And sometimes, the most powerful healing begins not with a clean page, but with a scar that chooses to speak.